What's going on, guys? Danny here from Metal Couch, and our Bolt Thrower discography continues today with the album For Victory. Now, the previous album, Fourth Crusade, while it had definitely had some issues with me, was still a very, very good album. For Victory, to me, is the opposite day of the Fourth Crusade. For Victory is, if I were to recommend to somebody who had never listened to Bolt Thrower before, the album that I would be like, here you go. For Victory is a more accessible effort from Bolt Thrower. It doesn't try to do anything too harsh, and I guess it was because Bolt Thrower at this point had kind of been like, where do we go from here? Our song, we kind of know how we want to write our songs, how we write riffs, how we do drum parts, vocals, things like that, and our lyrical themes. What exactly can we focus on? Where do we go? We don't want to plateau here. And I guess the answer to that would be that they improved the production. The production is a little bit, I shouldn't say a little bit, it's definitely clearer than previous albums, especially in comparison to Fourth Crusade. Fourth Crusade was stale and sterile, while For Victory has more character. This, to me, sounds like one of just top tier production for a death metal album in the mid-90s. Now, going through the track listing, immediately you get a track entitled War, an instrumental intro track, and finally, Bolt Thrower have been able to write a intro. I mean, instead of, like I said, the wind blowing and all of that, and with the last time on the Fourth Crusade, they had the outro recounting several different wars that have happened over the past 700 years or so. They finally went on ahead and was like, hey, let's actually put instruments in an intro, and it blends seamlessly into Remembrance. Remembrance is a great way to kick off the album. It's a nice solid track, very fast-paced, definitely, I don't think it's perfectly representative of what this album has in store for you, but it's to say, hey, we're Bolt Thrower and we're back. What we really get as a perfect representation of what this album is like is When Glory Beckons. I was taken aback when I heard this track, not in a negative sense, in a very positive sense, in the fact that when it comes to writing riffs, in the past Bolt Thrower have been trying to get a very catchy hook and stick with that and use things like leitmotifs throughout albums and things like that in order to grab your attention. I don't want people to take this too far out of context when I say this word, but in comparison to previous works, their riff writing is a little bit more progressive. And I don't mean like all technical and awkward time signatures, I just mean that their riffs have become more complex, and while they're not exactly in 100% progressive territory, they're starting to teeter on the edge of going over to, hey, we're going to make some weird sounding riffs and they're going to sound awesome. They don't quite get to that part, but you can tell right there that somebody just wanted to let loose and just get completely technical. Then we get the title track For Victory. Again, solid track, no real qualms here. And then Graven Image, which is probably a highlight off the album for me. Awesome, awesome track. Lest We Forget, it's alright. No really big qualms here. In fact, that's pretty much the majority of this album for me going through the track listing, is that at this point I was expecting the album to slow down, which is something that I've come to expect with a Bolt Thrower album. Every once in a while they'll start a song off that's really, really slow, might go on for 2 minutes, and then we'll have an explosion of solos towards the end, and it'll be completely awesome. This album doesn't do that. This album from start to finish is nothing but speed. And I like it. I like it a lot. I like how this album doesn't stop to take a breather. It takes you along for the ride, and you're sitting in the passenger seat, and there is no escape. Unless you hit the pause button, which, why would you want to? This album, to me, at no point did I want to shut this album off. At all. There was nothing bad listening through these tracks. I mean, let's take Tank Mark 1 and Armageddon Bound, for example, the last two tracks off the album, especially Armageddon Bound. Armageddon Bound was fucking awesome. The solo's in there, and then the song ends with artillery fire. which scared the shit out of me because I wasn't expecting it. Rip headphone users, so just beware. It's just an awesome album. I mean, this album gets 9s out of 10s everywhere that I look. And if you probably saw at the beginning of the video, that album cover is not very good. In comparison to something like The Fourth Crusade, which had awesome album art, for Victory, this is just really bad. I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but if you look at the cover art for this, apart from the bolt thrower logo, you'd be like, wow, is this supposed to be in a $4 bin at a local car wash? But no, not at all. It's a really great sounding album, but God, that album cover is fucking horrible. I don't dock points for album covers anymore. I stopped doing that a long time ago because because it's all about the contents inside. It's because, I mean, there are several albums that I've listened to that have had horrible album covers, and they've been 10 out of 10s for me. This album, to me, is probably, again, the most accessible Bolt Thrower album. If you have never listened to Bolt Thrower before, I highly recommend listening to For Victory and then working your way back. I really don't have anything to say about this album other than go listen to it. If you have to listen to one Bolt Thrower album, this would be it. From start to finish, it is nothing more than a strong musical effort. And just when you thought that these guys would plateau, they come around and surprise you with those near-technical riffs. The drumming actually blends fluidly this time, as opposed to The Fourth Crusade. They actually decide to, take opportunities within the music that's been written. The bass is fairly audible in the mix, for those of you who have trained ears. And the vocals even have a little bit of effects work done to them every once in a while. So, all in all, this was a really good album for me. If I were to give it a grade out of 10, even despite how tempted I am to give it a perfect score, I don't know. There's just something that's preventing me from giving it a 10 out of 10. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Honestly, I don't see any other reason to give it a 10 out of 10, because it, to me, was a great album. It was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. None of the issues that I had with the previous albums are present here. It's like the pinnacle of Bolt Thrower for me. Granted, it also is the more accessible, so some of those guys out there who are all like, In Battle There Is No Law is the best Bolt Thrower album because it's imperfect. You know what? I'm feeling very good today. Let's give it a 10 out of 10. Listen to this album. It's great. It's a seminal piece of death metal. You will enjoy it. If you love death metal and you have not listened to this album, for the love of Lucifer, please listen to this album. It's great. 10 out of 10 for me. Dean here from Metal Couch, signing out.